what is seen in public, in Facebook, in vlogs, is very, very far from what is discussed in the halls of power and between professionals. I mean, here in Senate, we know where we disagree, we know where we will agree, di ba? So for example, if you talk about divorce, we will know who is pro and anti. So yung pro, gusto niyang mapasa yung batas na pwede ng divorce. Yung anti, ayaw. Meron namang pro-divorce, pero ayaw na no-fault divorce. Ibig sabihin, kailangan may grounds. So, masalimuot ang issues, no? Anong point ko doon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, dear Senator Pangilinan? A issue this complex, we should simplify so that people, especially students, would know that, you know, we shouldn't be, dapat walang divide and rule, dapat hindi tayo magpabaya, dapat always tayo on guard. But is it productive na just because you don't agree on a certain point, siya pro-China, ikaw, di ba? So, let me ask you this question. Can you be pro-Philippines without being anti-China?
Well, that's a general proposition, so I will have to answer with a qualification, Mr. President.
That's okay, Mr. President.
Yes.
Ito naman, opinion lang naman natin dalawa.
It'll be difficult to be out and out pro-China, especially when it comes to policies that affect our national interests. So I will have to qualify that you can be pro-Philippines without being anti-China as a general proposition, but when a conflict arises, obviously, between China's interests and ours, then clearly we stand by the national interest.
So, meaning, Mr. President, it's like watching a basketball game between the Philippines and China. I'm pro-Philippines, and then in the game, of course, I will cheer for the Philippines, but I don't hate China. Diba? Pero dun sa specific interest natin, so for example, if I have to negotiate a trade deal, I will be pro-Philippines. Diba? Now, if it can be a win-win, why not? No? So ang point ko lang, Mr. President, unlike electoral politics, which is a zero-sum game, meaning if Senator Villanueva runs for mayor of Taguig and I run for mayor of Taguig, only one will win. But in diplomacy, it's not a zero-sum game. Diba? It's a continuous dialogue, continuous communication, and there are times that we shout at each other. There's time that you hate the situation. So I'm not even talking about being pro-China. So what I'm saying is that we deal with our problems with Vietnam, but we're pro-Philippines, but we're not anti-Vietnam.
Nabanggit ni ginoong minority leader yung basketball. In fact, ako may halimbawa. Last Tuesday, nung matapos yung aming balitaktakan ni Senator Marcoleta, yung nag-dinner kami sa Chinese restaurant. Hindi ng mga kasamahan ko. So ibig sabihin, kahit na ba tayo ay naninindigan at hindi tayo sumasang-ayon sa naging patakaran o yung mga bitiw na salita ng gobyerno ng China, paborito ko pa rin ng Chinese food.
Yes. So that's a good example because that's what I want to point out. Pareho tayo ng stand, atin to. Etong portions ng South China Sea, West Philippine Sea, na territory natin. Ako, mas radical pa stand ko. Hindi lang yung 12 nautical miles. Yung nasa Treaty of Spanish, atin din yun. Hindi natin pwedeng basta't i-give up yon by international treaty. Diba? Some will disagree, some will agree. The Supreme Court case na final ni a brilliant man ni Professor Magallona, diba? Nasabi niya, sa UNCLOS, bumawas yung ating territory. But we're not here to discuss that now. We're discussing, number one, yung sagutan ng opisyales at nila. So I just want to point that out, Mr. President, Senator Pangilinan, because we don't want to be hitting each other kung pareho naman pala stand natin in terms of sovereign rights and sovereignty. Let it be oversimplified. Si Senator Amy, kapitbahay natin dalawa, co-owners tayo, may puno ng mangga sa gitna. Sabi ni Senator Amy, sa kanya yon. Sabi natin dalawa, sa atin yon. Tuwing nagbubunga, nag-aaway tayo. Ang problema, mas mayaman sa atin si Senator Amy. Ang problema, marami pong tangke, airplano, pati sa pera, pati sa diplomacy, sa abogado, mas marami si Senator Amy. So ako, ang stand ko, makipag-usap tayo kay Senator Amy. Ikaw, ang stand mo, hindi, sinisigawan na tayo, makipagsigawan na tayo. So we have the same stand. Mr. President, let me just finish this sentence.
Yes, and I will clarify
but ang pinag-uusapan natin, yung approach. Pero as so far as saying na etong puno ng mangga ay atin, pareho tayo.
Pero hindi po nakikipagsigawan ang I would not describe yung position taken by this representation as nakikipagsigawan. In fact, maganda yung point ng minority leader, yung kanyang paghahambing na sila, ang China, maraming baril, maraming resources, maraming armamento, etc. At dahil nga doon, napakahalaga na ating isinusulong yung rule of law at yung ating sandigan ay yung international law. Hindi natin maaaring labanan ng puwersa ang China. We cannot fight in the area of brute force. And that's why we are fighting in the area of the arbitral ruling, the UNCLOS, the rule of law, international law.
Yes. I will not disagree with you. When I said sigawan, it was in the context of magkapitbahay, etc. Because, Mr. President, President Aquino and President Duterte had very different approach. President Aquino, at a certain point, to be fair to him, at a certain point, may bilateral na pag-uusap. But after the standoff sa Scarborough, nagkaroon po ng, for lack of better word, we call it megaphone diplomacy. Diba? Yung maingay sa media. But for the record, Mr. President, did we lose a single inch of territory or sovereign rights? Did we lose a single centavo during the Duterte administration?
Well, according to the Department of National Defense, because this was tackled during the interpellation last week, that despite the Duterte administration's positioning, the harassment did not stop. The water cannoning did not stop. And therefore, this is the situation, Mr. President. Hindi naman tumigil yung paghaharas. Hindi rin tumigil yung pag-water cannon.
Mr. President, we'll speak about that. Iibahin ko yun kasi ibang issue kung yung dispute was live at umaabot ba sa water cannon. Ang tinatanong ko, kasi during President Aquino's time, it's on the record, we lost control of Scarborough. We lost control. May miscalculations na nangyari. Instead of sending a Coast Guard ship, we sent a military ship, Navy, a gray ship, and then nagkaroon ng standoff and then kinontrol ng Chinese. So when President Duterte took over, that's what we had to deal with, the threats that it will further escalate. So from the time that President Duterte took over, June 30, 2016, until the time he left, June 30, 2022, did we lose a single feature, a single square inch? Did we lose part of our territory? I think it's on the record, we did not.
Well, if we did not lose any, then we thank the efforts of the past administration. But did we gain? Were we able to reverse the losses? I think not. Were we able to improve our trade, direct investments, etc.? I would say not so. Not as robust in terms of other countries. So therefore, may plus minus din po, Mr. President.
Well, let me answer that in two ways. First, I appeal to the records. We had more trade than during the Aquino administration. More bananas, other fruits were allowed into China. The tourism went up. First time in our history, lumaban yung dami ng Chinese versus dumami ng Japanese. And then yung hindi nakakapangisda, your staff, I have my support staff, you have your support staff, they can Google it. President Duterte announced that our fishermen can fish. Hindi lang pwede sa loob ng lagoon. And pati yon meron dahilan because spawning grounds yon eh. So hindi dapat mag-fish dun sa loob. Long story short, hindi nakakapag-fish nun. Did we gain? That is now the challenge of the Marcos administration. And that's why I have not commented whether I'm for or against, because his national security knows more of what's happening on the ground. And ongoing pa yung kanilang strategy. Do I hope that they will gain? I think there are some gains in the Scarborough. Of course, I hope that they will gain. Kaya nga ulit-ulitin ko, pareho stand natin, atin to eh. Yung approach natin ang iba. And tayo, nakakapag-discuss tayo, I will agree with you or disagree, you will disagree with me, but I will not call you hypocrite, pro-China, anti-China, anti-Philippines, ganyan. Because precisely, you know, when I was in the Foreign Affairs Department, question ako ng Malaysian, Indonesian more of curiosity at Vietnamese. Bakit ganito yung strategy? Because nakikinabang sila sa strategy natin pag tayo maingay. But I got the shock of my life. Why? Because when I actually became Foreign Secretary, the funds from the United States for the South China Sea, mas malaki ang nakukuha ng Vietnam kaso sa Pilipinas. Ginera nila ang Vietnam, tinalo sila. Tayo, treaty ally, mas malaki. Ang before the administration of President Duterte, binigyan ng same kind of ship or seacraft ang Taiwan sa Pilipinas. Yung sa kanila may weapon system, may communication system, sa atin walang weapon system. So Mr. President, what I'm saying is that pareho tayo ng stand. Pareho natin mahal ang Pilipinas, pareho natin gustong makinabang ang bawat Pilipino, ang anak ng anak ng anak ng anak ng anak natin. You know, President Cory, in her visit to China, actually started the discussion on this. So it's not new, no? So if you have comment, Mr. President, then can I have just a few more preliminary? Go ahead, Mr. President.
Just very quickly on the Scarborough Shoal incident. Precisely because of the Scarborough Shoal incident,
The Aquino administration proceeded to file the case before the International Tribunal a few years later. I think 1 year or several months later. And we won, thankfully.
Yes.
And in that regard, we placed on record that the 9-dash line of China is illegal according to the UNCLOS, that they're setting up, building destruction of the reefs and building artificial islands and runways was violative of our EEZ, and that alone gave us a strong footing. So strong in the sense that moving forward, several years later, about 60 countries have recognized the 2016 ruling.
Yes.
That favored precisely the Philippine position and counting. So I'd like to think that yes, that incident in Scarborough was most unfortunate that it led to that. But because of that incident, we, as a smaller nation, decided that the way to addressing the challenge of a bigger nation, more powerful nation, is by way of the rule of law, by international law.
Yes, Mr. President. But there were many things that happened in between. One, we made the mistake of sending a gray ship. Number two, if the records I read is correct, we made the mistake of relying on back channeling and an alleged, until now, walang confirmation o denial, kung totoong nag-mediate ang Amerika at sinabing pag umalis yung ships nyo, aalis din yung Chinese ships, umalis yung ship natin, hindi umalis yung Chinese ship. So I leave that to history to judge. But one question on the arbitral ruling. Is it a total victory o meron din parts na nagka-problema tayo?
Well, there is this concern that, which was already raised previously, that because the Kalayaan group of islands is not within the EEZ rather, then it creates some questions regarding our sovereign rights and sovereignty over the KIG. But it can be argued that in the same way, for example, Guam is not within the EEZ of the United States, it is still U.S. territory.
Medyo exhaustive naman po ang inyong talakayan ni Senator Marcoleta. I'll just try to summarize it in one line. Yung nangyari kasi doon, claim natin na China cannot claim a group of features as one unit that, what's the right word, that generates entitlements and rights, di ba? But tayo, claim natin yung KIG as a group. That's why last minute lang nalaman nung lawyer natin. So, but as I said, exhaustive kayo. But maraming hindi nakakaalam, and I think this is where it's upsetting to scholars. Because I got the shock of my life. Before I went to DFA, I attended seminars, international seminars. Ito yung mga track 2, mga professors. At tinanong nga ako ng isang professor, "Sir, did you win the arbitral award?" Of course, sagot ko yes, but I knew it was sort of a trick question. So he asked me, "Sa Scarborough Shoal, didn't you used to arrest Chinese fishermen?" "Yes." "Oh, didn't you used to arrest Vietnamese fishermen?" "Yes." "O ano ba ang sinabi sa award?" Sabi sa award, "It is recognized as traditional fishing ground of all three, Chinese, Filipinos, Vietnamese." So ngayon hindi na natin sila pwedeng arestuhin. So hindi rin totoo na parang Biblia, as far as we are Christians is concerned, that every part of the Bible is true. May mga naging kahinaan din itong agad-agad natin pagpunta sa arbitral ruling. Kaya in resetting our problem in Scarborough Shoal, hindi na natin mababalik sa before Pinoy's time or before the standoff because stop na tayo nung ruling sa arbitral court.
But in the conceding that may be the case in terms of us arresting other fishers from other nations, the fact that there was a recognition that these are traditional fishing grounds for all means that China is now doing illegal acts by water cannoning our fisher folk who are in the area, Mr. President. So in that regard,
Mr. President, that was clear even before. But before, pwede natin sila arestuhin. Ngayon, hindi na natin sila pwedeng arestuhin. Dati, pag i-easy natin, kailangan nila ng fisheries agreement. Kung hindi, pwede natin silang arestuhin. Parang Papua New Guinea. Sa ngayon, doon na tayo kumukuha. Not all, but tuna, kumukuha tayo sa EEZ nila, pero may fishing agreement. Sa ibang parts ng EEZ natin, we can still arrest.
yes.
But not in Scarborough. But that's not my point. My point is, we can discuss soberly as patriotic Filipinos how to navigate this and secure our territory and also benefit from all of this, from our sovereign rights, di ba? Without saying you're pro-China, you're anti-China, Chinador ka, etc. No? And the funny thing is, Mr. Llamas was correct on that point because sinasabi niya hindi man pinag-aralan lahat, iba-iba yan, iba yung stand natin sa Ayungin, iba stand natin sa KIG, kay Don. Kaya lang ngayon biglang balimbing na, biglang totally siya ang Mr. Philippines, no? Mr. President, who was the first to start reclaiming in the South China Sea?
At least from the Philippine diploma.
What country, Mr. President?
Malaysia actually reclaim yung layang-layang.
Oh, you're from the DFA.
DNC.
Yes, our DND resource person says that it was Malaysia
Okay.
that started claiming, no?
Okay. And of the claimant countries, sinong pinaka-aggressive?
Of the claimant countries.
I'm not talking about 1
China.
month, 1
China,
year.
of
In the
course.
last 20 years, China.
Yes.
Okay. Sino pinaka maraming reclamation?
China.
As of now, Vietnam.
As of today, Vietnam, according to the DND, Mr. President.
What country offered the United States not to militarize the reclamations, etc.?
No, hindi. Actually, Philippines was the first. President Ramos was the first to say not to militarize that.
Ramos.
Yeah, before.
Yes, according to our resource person, it was President Ramos who first
Okay.
requested not to militarize the area, Mr.
Okay.
President.
Not bad yung taga-DND, sir. You got 1 out of 4 questions correct. Not bad. The first to reclaim was Vietnam. The most aggressive to reclaim and most islands is Vietnam.
Yes, that's correct.
The most aggressive is Vietnam. The country to first propose to President Obama not to militarize na hindi tinanggap ng American government is China. President Xi was still vice president there. It's recorded in many, many books. I recommend you read yung kay Mahubani, a great diplomat, a great professor of the Lee Kuan Yew School of Government. No? Instead of saying yes, they continued to send their navy ships because of the freedom of navigation. And China reacted the same way that US reacted to missiles on Cuba. No? So the next question, Mr. President, inside our EEZ, sino ang pinakamaraming reclamation?
Right now, it's Vietnam.
Right now, it is, as I'm made to understand, it is Vietnam.
Okay. Sinong pangalawa?
China.
Again, according to our DND resource person, China is the second.
Okay. Mali po, it's Malaysia. So, tama ako, Malaysia. Kasi, Malaysia has 5. Well, if he considers the one by Taiwan because of the one China policy, then tied ang Malaysia at saka China. May I know if militarized etong mga nireclaim ng Vietnam at saka ng Malaysia?
Depends naman kung naglalagay ng military homes. Yung sa Vietnam, they are also military.
Yes, according to our resource persons in Vietnam, there are military personnel and officers. And
So
officials.
military personnel lang naman, but hindi militarized.
Well, yes, not in the context or not.
In the context of the Chinese.
Yes, not in the relative to.
Okay. Ang Malaysia po. Sige, can you show?
Sa Malaysia, sir, may
Pictures
military and then they also a civilianized island.
Similar. They have the military, but they also have civilianized islands, Mr. President.
Yeah, kasi that's it because having military.
Isa-isa pictures.
Actually, it's military.
Yeah.
It's part of defense. So, doing
There are pictures.
national defense on our part is not actually military.
Sige. Mr. President, I'm looking for the pictures, but I don't know kung hindi lang authorized ang representative nyo sa DND. Ang features ng Vietnam at Malaysia are may missile silos, may military ships, may radars. I showed it already in this session hall. So hindi totoo na hindi militarized ang Vietnam at saka ang Malaysian features. I'm trying to look for the pictures. Is it there? Yeah, that one. Can you show that, please?
Actually, yung term na militarized kasi hindi.
Nasa part 2. Mr. President, during the time of President Duterte, while they're reading the pictures, parating inuulit-ulit ni Justice Carpio, pag hindi ka nag-protest, malulusaw, I don't know his exact term, pero maapektuhan daw claim natin. Did you hear that noise during that time?
I may have picked it up, Mr. President.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly when he
Yes,
said that. But there were a number of
yeah,
times.
he together with many advocates kept on saying, whether I was foreign minister doon o hindi, na pagka hindi ka nag-protest, parang sa atin sa domestic law, di ba, na parang pag 30 years, yung lupa, walang titulo, uninterrupted, walang nagclaim, nagkakaroon ng laches o na-estopel ka. Is there a personnel from DFA here?
Yes.
Yes. Maybe we'd like
He
to get...
probably used to work for you.
Yeah. So let me ask that question. Is the principle of estoppel or of laches applicable to what we are contesting or what we are fighting for in the South China Sea? So tama ba si Justice Carpio na pag hindi tayo nag-protest, mawawala yan?
Kaya tayo nagko-protest. That's the reason why we protest. Kasi we will be bound to that.
So it does.
Kaya tayo nagko-protest.
As a general principle, the resource person says yes. Laches may, over time, affect our claims, Mr. President.
Maybe we have to correct that, Mr. President. Napakadelikado ng statement na yon. Alam niyo bakit? Kasi nung panahon ni President Aquino and even during the Duterte time, we did not protest Vietnam and Malaysia. So kung tama yung sinasabi ni Justice Carpio, wala na tayong claim sa sa 38 features ng China, so na clinic-claim nila, ang nasa loob ng EEZ natin 4, sa 24 na clinic-claim ng Vietnam, nasa EEZ natin 11, tapos yung Malaysia may 5, Taiwan, yung Ito Island, nasa loob, hindi natin pre-noticed yun, Mr. President. So, let's dispel that malicious political statement because it is not a legal proposition. Wala sa UNCLOS ang laches at saka estoppel. Wala po doon. Hindi, ibang-iba yung law of the sea sa law of land. Sa land, pag walang titulo, tapos si SecGen, lalo kung yung titulo, yung lupa na yun ay nasa Batangas, and meron siyang constituent na nandun 30 years, may tax deck siya, walang nag-claim, uninterrupted, pwedeng tituluhan, pag biglang ako, kapitbahay niya, 1 year later sabihin, akin yan, hindi na pwede. May estoppel na eh, may latches na eh. Hindi totoo yun sa law of the seas. Kahit 1,000 taon, kahit bumangon yung mga mummies at dun sa mga pyramid sa Egypt, atin pa rin yun. No, Mr. President? I mean, we don't have to debate it today, courtesy if the DFA wants to answer that. But if that is their answer, and that wasn't their answer to me when I was secretary, because I asked everyone in DFA, I asked them, kung tama si Justice Carpio at hindi nag-protest during the time of President Aquino, we will file the protest now. Sabi, sir, hindi kailangan. At saka, sir, pag nag-protest ka sa Vietnam at Malaysia, tayo magkakampi ngayon kasi mas malaki ang China. Tayo sa ASEAN ang nag-uusap-usap. So, hindi naman pwedeng iba yung rule sa China, iba yung rule sa Malaysia at Vietnam. In terms of legal, Mr. President.
In terms of legal, that's correct.
In approach,
In terms of realities,
yes,
we do have
in
to
certain realities, like for example, the water cannons, di ba?
Yes.
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 So, Mr. President, eto example, Hison Reef. My eyes isn't as good as it used to be, but I read the radar, I see the battle tank. Go to the next slides para lang makita. O eto, Bilang K. So makikita nyo po dyan, meron pong bunker, meron pong gun shelter, meron pong open, ayan, may battle tank, may lighthouse, may speedboats, may pier. Next slide. The Sincoe East Reef, if I'm pronouncing it right, ha? Meron tong 3-sweep twisted blade turbine for power. May battle tank. May 12.7 mm HMG. Concrete bunkers. At the time I got this and President Duterte allowed me to show it, ongoing pa yung construction nila. Next, Vietnam, Pugad Island. Sa Pugad Island, may battle tank, may anti-aircraft artillery. So let me ask the DND representative, through of course you gentleman, ang mga airplano ba natin, helicopters or Coast Guard, dumidikit sa mga island ng occupied ng Vietnam?
Yung dumidikit sa islands na ito.
Hindi, tayo dumidikit.
Hindi tayo dumidikit.
Hindi daw tayo dumidikit.
Yes. And that is why walang water cannon. That is why hindi natin napapanood sa balita yung you are in Vietnamese territory, move out. Because iniiwasan natin yung sa Malaysia at Vietnam. That's not the only reason, Mr. President. Kasi nga, hindi iniwasan ng China ang Sierra Madre. Sila mali doon, tama tayo doon. I don't contest that. This is my point, Mr. President. We're not being totally truthful to the Filipino people of what's happening sa West Philippine Sea, South China Sea. And as we strengthen to face China, Malaysia and Vietnam are also strengthening. I don't know if the resource person from DND has the information how many submarines does Vietnam have.
In the area?
Parang 6 ata.
There are a number
Yes.
of
And how many does Malaysia have?
I think 3.
also. There are,
I'm sorry, sir. I know you don't have it offhand, but enough to say na marami. How many Philippines has? Except, hindi kasama yung kay Chabit na submarine na ginagamit niya sa Ilocos, ha? How many submarines does the Philippines have?
according to the DND, we have no submarines,
Okay.
Mr. President.
So in long story short, we don't really have a strategy except the transparency strategy against China, but more so, we don't have that concrete strategy against Vietnam and Malaysia. Although we're friendly, Vietnam and Malaysia, as seen in all of this, have a strategy against the Philippines. In this last one, tignan mo po yung Quay. Tignan nyo po yung landingan nila, no? Dun sa Pugad Island, Let's go very fast with your permission just to show you yung Malaysian. Let's go to the Malaysian. Ayan. So yan ang example po, oh. May runways na rin sila. Next slide. Swallow Reef. Next slide. 5 yan eh. So anyway, sige. Let's stop there. But the point I want to make, Mr. President, is kailangan natin magkaisa sa issue na to. Atin to. And some want to make it a political issue. Sila pro-China, kami anti. Hindi po. Pare-pareho tayong pro-Philippines. Pero may mga detalye na kailangan pag-usapan natin ng husto. So I'll go straight to the resolution unless you wanna
Yes, please.
just react. Yeah. To the resolution, Mr. President, is it correct that ang pinagmulan nito ay yung presentation ni Commodore Tariela na may depiction in caricature or whatever the right name is of President Xi sa presentation niya? Ito ba yung pinagmulan nito?
Hindi naman, di ba? Even before that.
I think that may be one of the issues raised, but I don't think it began with that, Mr. President.
No, Mr. President, because bago po yung yung Chinese ambassador eh. So, all the disputes with the former ambassador, kung meron man, was covered by the 19th Congress eh. Kompleto naman tayo ng resolution eh. So, lumala ito nung nagkaroon ng caricature regarding the president of China. So, asan yung side by side? Pakita mo. So, siguro ito question ko. Let's, with your permission, Mr. President, Senator Pangilinan, let's focus on Commodore Tariela muna, no? Let me state this for the record muna, ha? I don't doubt his patriotism. I don't doubt his contribution to the cause. At lahat ng ginawa niya na opisyal at tama, wala akong problema. Okay. This is one picture. Pero nasan yung picture ni Presidente na nung sa ASEAN ba yon o sa APEC?
Caricature was in January 14.
Hindi, yung nilapitan niya bigla si President Xi.
During the military.
Meron ka nun, di ba? Ito muna. Ano sa dalawa ang opisyal ng Pilipinas? Yung mag-usap tayo, magdebate, ipaglaban natin atin, pero sa simbolo ng watawat at sa simbolo ng Pangulo ng bawat bansa, cordial tayo, or ang opisyal ba natin ay umikot tayo at gumawa tayo ng mga caricature at siraan natin ang image ng presidente ng kabila. Which is our official policy?
If I may just clarify, Mr. President, because the mention of the caricature. Mr. President, according to the information, the caricature came out January 14. But even before that, Mr. President, I publicly came up with a statement expressing concern about the military exercises, live military exercises undertaken by China in the Taiwan Straits. That was in December. And there, Mr. President, I was called out by the Chinese embassy spokesperson saying, reminding me that I should respect the One China policy. And so the issue of Tariela cannot be isolated, Mr. President.
Okay. So,
And therefore, if I answer this, it is simplifying, Mr. President, the whole resolution into Tariela's statements. No, it's not, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I'll go to the One China policy later on and why you were called out. Because if you remember, the President himself was called out.
Exactly,
But not
Mr.
by
President.
no, because that's their duty.
Well, and this is our duty to respond.
Yes.
Mr. President. Yes.
Yes, it's your duty to respond, Mr. President. But
To uphold the rights, to uphold our independence, to uphold our freedom of speech, Mr. President.
yes, Mr. President, but one of the red lines of China in their diplomatic relations with any country, including the United States, is the One China policy. That's why when the Speaker of the House of US went to Taiwan, they were called out. And there was no issue.
Mr. President,
and they called, Mr. President, let me finish.
Yes.
They called, and there was a debate. When President Bongbong said we have to prepare, President BBM, nag-statement. So, wala namang issue eh. Eto stand natin, eto stand nila.
Except that, Mr.
What's the
President,
issue there?
my experience with Chinese statements, Mr. President, is that they tend to they tend to be inaccurate or they tend to make wrong, false accusations. Mr. President, I was chairperson of the Council of Asian Liberals and Democrats. Our organization was blacklisted by China. And the accusation was that the Council of Asian Liberals and Democrats, of which I was chairperson, was supporting Taiwanese independence, which was a lie, Mr. President. So I've had experience with Chinese public statements that are false because it serves their interests to promote their One China policy. We respect their One China policy. When I expressed concern about the live military exercise, I did not speak about Taiwan's independence, or I did not speak about, at least from my point of view, it had nothing to do with the One China policy. We were just expressing concern that the live military exercises are creating tension and escalating tension in in our region. There was no mention of one China policy, and then they come in and then remind me.
No, Mr. President.
That
That is a standard reminder because they consider Taiwan and the waters in between to be part of China. So, put it another way, Mr. President. Sa kainitan ng secession movement ng Mindanao, kung may statement ang isang opisyal ng China dahil nagpadala tayo ng military sa Marawi, hindi ba ang diplomats natin sa Beijing sasabihin din sa kanila, huwag kayong makialam? Kasi one Philippines to eh. Ang Mindanao ay hindi independent.
Mr. President, I beg to disagree with the comparison. I think, again, ano yan, Atis at Santol, Mr. President. Iba yung sitwasyon dun sa Mindanao, iba naman ang sitwasyon dito sa Taiwan Straits, Mr. President.
Mr. President, that's a very,
For example, we have about 200,000 overseas Filipinos in Taiwan. And so these live military exercises are a concern because an accident could lead towards, a shooting war, which we would, for the sake of our Filipinos overseas, we would like to ensure that nothing like that happens.
No, I agree with you, Mr. President. And I agree with your statement, and I agree na sana hindi invade yung Taiwan. What I'm saying is it's the duty of their diplomats na sumagot. So if there were 200,000 Chinese in Mindanao, and we had live exercises, i-invade yung Marawi, yung ating diplomat ay aangal pa rin sa Beijing because it's their duty. Diba? But to move on from that, Mr. President, okay. Going back to Commodore Tariela, sa resolution nyo po kasi nakalagay dito in their performance of the official duties. So, tinanong ng ambassador ng China sa DFA, official ba yan? Which is tama and normal. So if in Beijing, yung isang general doon ay maglabas ng caricature ni BBM, ipare-recall natin yung ambassador natin doon pag hindi siya nagtanong, nag-protest na bakit, at pag hindi sinabing official ba yon. Kasi yung Pangulo natin takes effort and time for good relations despite the dispute. Tapos yung general, naka-uniforme pa siya on official time, will show this caricature. So my point, Mr. President, is naghahalo-halo kasi itong resolution na to kung ano tama at mali. Let's assume, I will not grant because hindi ko alam yung statements niyo, Mr. President. I have to admit that. Okay? Pero naghahalo din yung statement si Tariela. We cannot pass this resolution saying that Commodore Tariela is correct because he's wrong. If he just